All right, folks. Hello. Good morning, and thank you for joining us here at day 2 of the Study and Go Abroad virtual fair. My name is Logan. I'm with scholarshipscanada.com, and we're here today to talk a bit about the site and more broadly finding and applying for and ideally taking home a few scholarships for yourself. So we will kind of run through our presentation here, and we'll have time for questions as well. If you've got specific cues, we'll do our best to provide some A's. So you can use the chat or the Q&A panel here in Zoom to throw a message our way. Also, the presentation is being recorded, so we'll make it available on our YouTube channel afterwards as well. So with that out of the way, we will get started. And again, feel free to break in with any questions you might have throughout. All right, let's jump in. So scholarshipscanada.com. Let's see. Next slide, please. Hey, here we go. Okay, so you're probably already pretty sold on the idea of why you should pursue post-secondary, but when you see the figures right in front of you, it can be pretty convincing. Generally, over the course of your career, right, 40 years or more of working life, with a bachelor's degree, you can earn about $1 million more than you would with just a high school diploma. Now, odds are you're going to spend more money as well, right? But having that extra income generally is pretty appealing. You can see here in the table, different levels of education pay sort of different average wages. This is data from StatsCan from a few years ago. There's a bit of a gender disparity there as well. But the general trend is the more educated you are, the more money you're likely to make over the course of your career. And excuse me, it goes even further with master's degrees. You'll make even more money if you hold a master's. So it is more than just income, though. Studies have found that people with higher education are typically more civically engaged, more socially engaged. These are people who get involved with their community, right? Have better and more healthy habits. So by sharpening your skills and your intellect at college or university, you're better preparing yourself for the always challenging task of being a human being. Okay. But the question is, of course, you want to get that education. How are you going to pay for it? These are some of the more common ways. Savings and work. If you're lucky enough to have a decent job through COVID, maybe you've squirreled away a bit of coin. That's great if it's possible. And you may have to sort of pursue part-time work while you're studying as well. Some folks are lucky enough to have family members or parents who can throw a bit of money your way. Some people have registered education savings plan from their folks and get some money that way. Other people are not so lucky. So it'll really depend what your situation is like, if your folks can contribute at all. Excuse me. Next, loans. This is something you want to avoid, but it's an inevitable trap for many. This is sort of provincial, federal, or bank loans, right? So at the provincial or federal student loan level, you'll be assessed based on your financial need, and the government will sort of lend you money, right? Basically to help you pay for school. The catch is you need to pay that money back. Provincial and federal student loans generally have pretty decent and forgiving terms. You'll have some time after graduation before you need to pay it back, and you may get some relief. You may not have to pay back everything that you owe. So trying to get a sort of student loan from the province, we're talking OSAP, Alberta Aid, and BC, all provinces have their own version, and federal student aid. Ideally, you want to get that, right? Because you may not have to pay it all back and the terms will be favorable. You can also get a line of credit from a bank. Generally, there are student lines of credit from many different Canadian banks. The idea here is it's still better than like a credit card loan, but you'll still need to pay the money back. So if you can avoid taking out too much in terms of loans, you'll do yourself a service. Finally, there are scholarships and bursaries. This is what we're here to talk about, and this is where you want to be angling towards too, because the money here you do not have to repay. It comes directly to you and it stays with you. Scholarships broadly are around sort of academics or athletics, engagement with community, volunteer, that kind of thing. Bursaries, on the other hand, are specifically around financial need. So if you've got a big hole in your budget, you may be eligible for a bursary. Whereas if you've got a 90+ average, you'll be eligible for scholarships. We'll dig into some of the distinctions here. Okay. What could a $1,000 scholarship cover? So $1,000 doesn't seem like a huge amount when you're dealing with overseas fees, right, which tend to be higher than domestic. Textbooks, course fees, right, they can add up easily. MetroPass, if you're attending in person, which is becoming more common these days. Your phone bill, right, you got to communicate, your entertainment, all of this could be covered. Now, there is a distinction whether a given scholarship comes to you in terms of money or if it goes directly to outstanding tuition fees. So it'll depend on the award, but stuff like student loans generally ends up just cash in your account. So you can spend it not just on tuition, but on rent, textbooks, what have you. Okay, we'll talk about briefly some scholarship myths. These are misconceptions that people have about scholarships in general. Don't have the marks. This is a big one. A lot of students feel like if they're not a 90+ average, sort of top of the class, graduate valedictorian, that they won't qualify. Let's disabuse you of that notion. As you can see, a big majority of the awards we list on Scholarships Canada don't ask about your grades at all. They're interested in other things. So even if you are not, boy genius type person, sort of academic whiz kid, you can still qualify for a lot of different scholarships. Lots of competition. This is a sort of yes and no thing. As you can see, a lot of admins that we talk to want more applicants. A small minority get no applications at all, meaning you could conceivably receive an award just by virtue of being the only person who applies for it. Not bad. If you can win by default, why not? Some awards, of course, do have a lot of competition, but these tend to be the bigger names and the bigger values. So TD, Manulife, the Loran scholarships, where we're talking tens of thousands of dollars. These typically get a lot of competition. Smaller awards often don't. Only schools give out scholarships. Definitely not true. It's becoming more common that organizations, trade unions, corporations, religious groups offer scholarships specifically. A good chunk of the listings that we have are from non-educational admins. And these are typically awards that are harder to find because they're from like a small law firm somewhere, right? So we do our best to find and index those awards so that you don't have to. It's easier to find, okay, what scholarships does the University of Toronto offer? That's easy to find. What scholarships does REMAX, the real estate agency, offer? Trickier. So we try to pull that together for you. With 4 deadlines only in spring, not true at all. Of course, we're heading into spring at last, but there are deadlines throughout the year. We've got awards all through the summer, into the fall, into the winter time. Things just cascade. So you kind of have to pay attention throughout the year. It's a bit of a drag because it means there is no scholarship season. You need to keep at it throughout. Okay, finally, not in financial need. Probably you are, really. If you can't afford tens of thousands of dollars each year for education, you are in financial need. Only about a third of the awards that we list on Scholarships Canada really ask about it at all, but chances are you could use a bit of extra coin for college or university. I mean, who couldn't? So to recapitulate here, we're not too focused on marks. There are awards from all sorts of organizations and they're all year round. The final point here is the most important. You can't win if you don't apply at all, right? If you don't take the time to see what's available and take a chance on yourself by submitting an application, you'll never know. So there is a scholarship for you, hopefully. It's hard to find in a lot of cases. And the more sort of specialized your program or your pathway, the more challenging it will be, especially for study abroad. So if you are looking at going out of country for your education here at the Study and Go Abroad Virtual Fair, you are going to need to work a little harder than somebody who might be going to university in their hometown. So make sure you're thinking early about what you need to do. So now we'll dig into a couple of different sort of exemplar scholarships to show off some of these factors in action and get a better sense of what scholarshipscanada.com is like. So here is our first example, the Retail Education Scholarship Program. This one's pretty cool because it is open to almost anybody. Really, the number one factor is retail work experience. So if you've ever stocked shelves at a grocery store, if you've ever sold shoes, or I don't know, maybe even an Amazon warehouse might count at this point. Any sort of retail work experience really is what they're looking for. A short essay, a quick reference letter, and that's it, right? Any year of study, you could be graduating from a college degree and still qualify for this. They're not interested in your grades, right? They're looking for your retail experience. So this is going to capture a lot of students, right? And there's a lot of awards, almost two dozen available. So think about these sorts of things, your work history. Here's another example, this one a bit more specific. This is from Ulster University in the UK. Specifically for Canadian students who are coming abroad, right? Tuition fees for international students are generally higher than domestic, as you may know. This award aims to help Canadians come overseas to Ulster. The real beauty here is it is renewable. So a renewable award is something that you continue to qualify for year over year. So let me explain. Your first year, you earn this scholarship because you've got a decent grade or whatever else. In your second year at Ulster, you keep your grades up, you're doing well, you qualify for the award again in year two. So they'll pay you again. Year three, your grades, you're still doing well. They're slipping a little, but you still qualify, you get paid in year three. So renewable awards are really great. If you can get into a renewable award early, you'll set the stage for getting discounts off your tuition, or you'll be helping yourself out in the long term. Third example, this one is from sort of the opposite perspective. This is from the University of Calgary, specifically for students who are studying abroad themselves. So this is more of an exchange program type of thing. If you are a UCalgary student and you're studying media and you want to do a year abroad at Cambridge, beauty, $2,500 for that. So it's not just awards for schools that are outside Canada, but in Canada to send you outside as well do exist. So where are you going to start? This is the big question, one of. Before you begin, you're going to want to do almost a personal inventory, a sort of not quite soul searching, but grab yourself a piece of paper and think about some of these factors. Field of study, this one's obvious. What are you going into? More and more, we're seeing a lot of STEM awards these days, so you may have a little bit better luck if you're studying computer science versus music composition, for example. So what you're studying is going to factor into what you're going to qualify for. Your year of study too, we kind of hinted at this with the renewable thing. Scholarships become harder to find the further into your program you get, as a general rule of thumb. The most awards are available at sort of entrance level. Entrance awards are for students who are coming out of high school right into university. So if you're leaving grade 12 and heading into your first year of college or uni, you're going to look for entrance awards. If you can find a renewable entrance award, all the better, because it keeps paying you year 1, 2, 3, 4. Otherwise, as you get into years 3 and 4, it starts to get harder to find awards. So make sure you think about that when you're doing your research. Activities, this is a big one. Some of these are popping up more and more in almost every scholarship we see these days, and that is leadership, community involvement, volunteer experience. These are big terms that are constantly sought by admins. Other things like sports, right? We often think of the classic American football scholarship, right? I'm going to university because I'm a great football player. That's less common in Canada, but not totally absent. So think about that. Sports you might play, religious experiences you may have, or affiliations. Your academic average, that's pretty obvious. Higher your grades, the better your shot generally. Okay, other factors. Heritage, this is another big one we're seeing more and more. A lot of admins are setting up scholarships with a sort of equity, diversity, inclusion mandate, especially here in Canada, at least around sort of Indigenous folks, First Nations, Métis, Inuit, etc. But that's not the only choice. If you have Chinese heritage, there are awards for you. We recently were looking at package of awards for like Korean Canadian students. So whatever your heritage, chances are there are some awards for you as well. Oops, trying to get our chat here. We've got a quick question from Raptors Master 2. Let me come back to your questions because you got a few of them there. I'll finish this slide and jump right back. Okay, affiliation, kind of hinted at this as well. Companies, religious groups, unions. I tell this story a lot, but when I was growing up, my dad worked for Coca-Cola, pop company. So not only did he work there, but he was part of a union. They're a union workplace, so he belonged to a union. Coca-Cola itself, the company offered scholarships to students, like sons and daughters of employees. And the union also offered scholarships for students that are employee related. So think about not only where you may have worked, but where your parents might work, right? Unions they belong to, even your grandparents in some cases, especially in terms of sort of military service awards and so on, they're often open to grandsons, granddaughters. So think about different affiliations you and your family might have. Personal circumstance, a little bit more specific and restricted. This is stuff about you that is almost inherent. Are you a single parent? Have you suffered a brain injury? Do you have a specific sort of chronic illness? There are, believe it or not, awards for folks in these circumstances as well. Financial need, talked about that. Probably you are in financial need. If you're really not sure, you can reach out to the admin. We have the contact info on Scholarships Canada. Finally, location. This is one students often don't really think about, but you may want to look into your hometown, your original city or a village that you grew up in. We see awards from like small towns in Southwest Ontario, for instance. $1,000 for somebody going to school who grew up in our little town. So think about that, not only where you're going to study, but where you've come from. Okay, so we will continue in a second, but I'd like to answer Raptor's master question if I can. How many maximum scholarships can you apply for? Infinite, no limit. You can always apply for almost as many as you can. Now, bear in mind, there are some programs that may have, okay, I'll use this example. The EFC scholarship program is running right now. It is a collection of scholarships, about 62 maybe. Different companies have all banded together. They've each got their scholarships. So there are 62 scholarships worth $160,000 together. For the EFC, you can apply to 3 of those 62. Okay, so you can't apply to all 62 for that program, but you can apply to as many other programs as you want, right? Manulife, whatever. So effectively, there's no real maximum how many scholarships you can apply to. Okay, B, if you want to work with the armed forces, can you still apply for scholarships? Absolutely. Most scholarships are going to require you to be enrolled in school, so you'll probably have to delay, right? If you're going into the Army for a couple of years and going to school after, you're going to be applying for scholarships after, right, when you're going into school. But being in the Army, the military forces, does qualify you for more scholarships than most people. There are veterans associations, etc., lots of different associations, organizations that offer scholarships to people with military experience. So you'll probably actually be in a slightly better position if you do a couple of years first. Your final question here, what do companies and institutions get in return after giving us money to continue? What's their profit? Good question. It is generally a sort of mandate, well, it's advertising first and foremost, right? It's a way to get your name out there. It is a sort of community goodwill thing as well, right? It is a positive contribution to society. And in many or most cases, it's going to be a tax write-off as well. So if they give you $1,000, they're probably going to get a tax write-off of 750 of that. So generally the money they give you doesn't actually cost them that much. So there's a few different reasons people get out scholarships. Generally, it's sort of advertising, goodwill, community service, and tax breaks. Maybe in that order. So I hope that answers your question. We got one more, I think. I also saw somebody raise their hand. If you can use the chat panel or the Q&A instead. Great. Mohammed, what is the actual process? Did the company providing the scholarship ask for your Visa card or other methods? Yeah, good question. Generally, you won't be asked for a visa. Most scholarships are going to be like an application form that might be name, email, what are you studying, when, where, that kind of thing. And you may be asked for a personal statement, which will be 400, 500 words. You may be asked for a resume and a cover letter, right? But nothing crazy. Think of it like applying for a job. In most cases, it'll be like that, but simpler. So you shouldn't really need to get into your immigration details in most cases. How do you know if you've received a scholarship? Did they send an email? Yeah, you'll get an email or a phone call, generally an email. Sometimes it takes a long time. I've been part of many scholarship programs, and it takes weeks or even months to select a winner. So you may not hear for a long time before finally you get an email, oh, I forgot all about it, but I actually received that award. Or worst case scenario, I forgot all about it and I didn't win. Sometimes it takes a while, but generally, yeah, you'll get an email or a phone call. Okay, so keep the questions coming, folks. Thanks for those. Otherwise, we will keep moving. How are we doing on time? About halfway. Getting matched. So we've talked about a lot of different factors on what to look for and how, but it's a lot to keep in the air, right? A lot to juggle. So we do our best to use technology to make it a little easier for you. We call it Get Matched. This is Scholarships Canada Tech. Yeah, here we go. That helps to bring the tens of thousands of awards we have in the index directly to you. So how do you do it? Profile. It's basically like setting up a social media profile. If you've ever built an Insta or TikTok or whatever, it's going to be pretty similar, though maybe more extensive. You'll be asked about your sort of educational goals, right? Your experiences. You'll be asked about activities, heritage, affiliation, all these factors we talked about. You'll be able to tick them off a list. Okay, I had Indigenous heritage, I played field hockey, and I am a member of my school's anime club, say. So these are sort of unique facets about me. What awards do I qualify for based on my unique profile? So you set up your profile and you get your matches. You'll also get the option to subscribe. We've got a few different options here, a newsletter being one that is dear to my heart. But the most important really is the scholarship deadline alerts. This is a monthly email that you'll get that just lets you know, hey, your scholarship A, B, and C plus X, Y, and Z are all closing soon, and they sort of match you for reasons 1, 2, 3. Don't forget to apply because the deadline is soon. This is a nice way to get reminded about what is coming up without having to actually hit the website. So you get an email once a month and that's it, right? You don't have to remember to come back, so that can be handy. But otherwise, once you get signed in, you've got your matching scholarships. This is where the real magic is. You can see here, you'll get just a big list, sorted by deadline, what's coming up soon. You can see the value, the school, the field of study. You can save them or nix them from your list or click in for more information. And this list continues to update, right? This is an old screenshot, but as the deadlines pass, new ones float to the top. You can also use the site to search or refine with a bunch of filters. So you can sort of see in this screenshot the results page. You got a bunch of awards. You've got filters with the drop downs that you can use to cut them down. Okay, really, I'm only looking for awards for schools in Ontario, say. You can do that. Or you can use keywords like you would in Google. Single terms like STEM or biology or writing, right? All of these do pretty well. So being able to refine and search is handy, sure. General tips. Okay, this is overall life advice from somebody who's been in the trenches. You need to put some time in. It's sort of, we analogize to a part-time job, treat it like a part-time job, really. You've got to put some hours in, and you've got to build a schedule where you check in occasionally. The deadline alert email can help with that because it comes from outside, right? Reminds you, oh yeah, I should take a look at what scholarships are open. A few hours a week, maybe that's overkill. We'll dig a little bit into how best to structure your time in a second. But the basic idea is it's a rolling thing. It's not a one and done. I applied for this year to 5 awards. Now I'm going to dust my hands off and go back to sleep. No, you got to put a couple hours in. Throw a podcast on, right? Put some music, make it fun for yourself if you can, but put a bit of time in. Scholarships Canada, deadline alerts, we mentioned that. The requirements, you can reach out to admins if you have questions. We do our best to include contact information for our awards so that you can touch base with somebody if you need to. Apply to smaller awards. This is a big one. A lot of scholarships are highly competitive. Again, we're talking big names, Loran, Manulife, TD Community. These are tens of thousands of dollars, right? Pay your whole fee in one snap. Well, those have lots of competition. Awards for $750, $1,000. They often go a little less subscribed. And yet, as we talked at the top, $1,000 goes a long way. Or if you think of it in terms of minimum wage labor, that's dozens of hours you could be slinging burgers or folding sweaters, as opposed to somebody who just hands you a check, right? So apply to smaller awards, even if you're sort of skeptical, who the heck are these people? Just apply anyway. If you qualify, it doesn't hurt. It's free to apply. On that note too, if you're ever charged to apply for a scholarship, run the other way. Applying for a scholarship will always be free. If somebody asks you to pay to apply, don't do it. Okay, be prepared. This is a big one that we really try to hit home. We mentioned earlier that some scholarships will ask for personal statement or reference letters, cover letter, resume. You can have all of this stuff prepared ahead of time, way ahead of time even. You could start working on this in grade 10 and 11 even, building your network, getting the right people, polishing, editing your work. The idea though is once you have your resume done, your reference letter in hand, you use it again and again and again. If a scholarship asks for a personal essay, generally they're going to want to know who you are, what your goals are, how you came to care about your field of study. And they often all ask these same questions. So once you've got a pretty good answer, just use it again. Tweak it for scholarship A, send it out. Tweak it a little bit more for scholarship B, send it out. Perfect. As long as you're addressing the question and you're not totally off base, you're good to reuse this stuff. Reference letters, same story. If your math teacher gave you a glowing reference letter and it's addressed to the TD scholarship, who cares? Use it for Loran as well. You can reuse these things, and you should do. It'll cut down some of your time. Just make sure you're tweaking and customizing where necessary. And don't give up. This goes back to the part-time job thing, but again, often it's a long wait too. We mentioned that. If you don't hear right back from an award, I didn't win. Well, maybe not. Don't be discouraged if you don't immediately hear back or if you don't receive the first couple of awards you applied for. It is a long game, and getting yourself free money is one of the life's fine little pleasures, so it's worth pursuing. Scholarship Canada also has other tips and FAQs. If you've got specific questions or are looking for a little bit more of structured help, we do have that, sort of sample letters, checklists, and so on. You can dig into those resources. And you can follow us on social. Scholarships Canada Instagram is a pretty good way to find out about new awards. We're posting on there all the time, and it's nicely curated. So if you want to kind of get the latest details on big awards that you could apply for, but you don't want to sign up for the site or have a newsletter once a month, following on Insta is a good way. We also have a Twitter and a Facebook as well. Alternatively, there's also Schoolfinder. This is our sort of sister site, more for students trying to find the right school and program. So if you're really not sure where you want to go or what you want to study yet, School Finder would be more helpful, I think, than Scholarships Canada, because it'll help you figure out what the programs are that are out there, and you can dig into all the details. So there's Ulster University, their accounting program, details, links, costs, everything's all there, and you can compare them too. Events on School Finder, pretty straightforward. All sorts of educational events are in there. And otherwise, that's about it for me, folks. We've got a few more minutes left for questions. If anybody has anything specific on your mind, I'm happy to do my best to answer. Otherwise, please do follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We are all over it all day long. So hit us there as well, send us questions, and we'll do our best to help you. You can also reach us via email if you want, info@schoolfindergroup.com. Otherwise, I do wish you the best of luck, not only in your scholarship search, but in the rest of the Study and Go Abroad virtual fair. Hey, we got another question from Mohammed. Let me see, answer live. So the question is, do I have to be accepted at one of the Canadian universities in order to get these scholarships? Can I use the scholarships to fund my expenses or just tuition? Great questions, both. So let's take them one at a time. Do you have to be accepted? Almost always, yes. If not accepted, generally, well, yeah, pretty much. You'll need to have been, you'll need to have applied and been accepted in most cases. Some awards are open to high school students who haven't yet enrolled or even applied, but most of the time you'll need to have some indication that you are going to school. So do you need to be accepted? Generally, yes, in most cases. Second part of the question, can you use the money to fund expenses or just tuition? It depends on the awards. Some awards will cut you a check and just send you money and you can do whatever you want with it. You can give it away. Other scholarship programs will send money directly to your school. So they may cut you out of it entirely. Hey, you won 10 grand. We're going to send it to University of Toronto and they'll apply it to your account. And that's it. So it depends. If an award sends you money, you can do whatever you want with it. If they send it to the school, you won't really be able to get your hands on it. And so it will go just to tuition. I hope that helps answer your question, Mohammed. We've got a couple of more cues here as well. Okay, from Chris, can I apply for OSAP to go to university outside of Canada? Great question as well. Yes, in most cases you can actually. When you apply for OSAP, it'll ask where you want to go. As long as it's an accredited institution, right? We're talking legit universities like Cambridge or York, as opposed to some degree mill you never heard of. But if it's a legit university or college outside of Canada, OSAP, Student Aid BC, you know, the various provincial and federal student loan programs should be open to you as well. So yeah, if you're looking at going abroad, still consider your provincial student loan options. Another question from Awia here. I'm in grade 11. How soon can I start applying for scholarships, or can I start applying now? Thank you for this question. Another great one. Grade 11 is almost the perfect spot, but you're generally not going to start applying yet. So this goes back to my point with Mohammed, that most of the time you're going to need to be accepted into a college or university to be able to apply. So that generally means you've graduated high school to be looking for college. So if you're in grade 11, it's generally a little too early to start applying. Now, some awards are open to current high school students. I know we're featuring one right now. It's the Horatio Alger Award, and that is specifically for grade 11 students. So some awards, but they're in the minority. What you want to do instead in grade 11 is really focus on building those factors we discussed. So getting great reference letters, starting a volunteer experience, building your leadership bona fides. You're in a pretty good position to start building your credibility so that when you apply next year, you'll have a better shot at actually taking some awards home. I hope that helps answer your question, Oya. Another question, Mohammed Maman, is it true that the number of master's scholarships is greater than undergrad? And what do we have to be prepared for the master's scholarships? Interesting question. Is it true? No, not in my experience. I'm not sure, in fact, why you might think that. I'm quite curious, but in my experience, awards for undergrads are much more common. Of course, there are more undergrad students than master's students as well. So percentage-wise, harder to say, but in terms of raw numbers, there are more scholarships for undergrads. And again, generally it trends towards earlier in the process too, first year, second year, more than third, fourth year. What to do to be prepared for master's scholarships, though, is pretty much the same. You're going to be competing at a higher level, as it were. So you're going to want to make sure that your reference letters in particular are quite strong, that you have good relationships with professors from your undergrad who can speak to your professional and personal competencies. So just like OEA, you're going to be working on building your factors, right? Your reference letters, your cover letter, your volunteer experience, all of this stuff will contribute, but the general process is the same. Now, some awards are open to master's students that are not open to undergrads. In particular, the Canadian government has different study abroad options for master's students in particular. You may want to check out educanada.com or .ca rather, educanada, because they'll have different options. They're kind of restricted, but they're generally at the master's level or above. So that might be an option for you. Okay, I hope that helps, Mohammed. Anybody else have any more questions? Now is the time. We've got a few more minutes. Keep them coming. Otherwise, we will wrap up shortly and you can enjoy the rest of the Study and Go Abroad virtual fair. Another question, this is from Esther. Do the reference letters have to be written by professors from the country we're applying to? Interesting question, Esther. No. If you're applying to Canada and you live in Uganda, you're not going to have reference letters from Canadian professors, right? You don't live there, you don't know anybody. That's fine. Your reference letters should come from somebody who knows you well for a year or more in a professional or academic setting. So we're not talking your grandma who's known you since you were a baby and loves you. We're talking your science teacher who taught you 2 courses and really saw your growth and your burgeoning command of the material, right? So we're looking for people who know you well, can speak to your credibility, but are sort of professional, academic, as opposed to personal. I hope that helps. And yeah, again, to reiterate, they should be from your immediate circle, right? Somebody you know, not somebody from the country you're trying to get to, unless you know somebody well there, of course. So thanks for that question, Esther. Can I use your tutors to write reference letters? Tutor maybe is not bad option. I would say yes. It wouldn't be my first shot, I guess, but if it feels good to you and this person does know you well in a professional, not a personal context, then sure, yeah, why not? Okay, more questions coming in. I've seen online ambassadors on some uni sites. Where can I meet these ambassadors? So this is a new thing some schools are trying, and it's because it's from student demand, right? Students want to speak with other students to connect about different options, their experiences, right? What was this program like for you? I'm considering a molecular biology, but I heard the professor is pretty hardcore, right? Is that true? You can chat with current students at some schools now, thanks to the marvelous internet, right? Schoolfinder in particular has started a new program. So if you check out schoolfinder.com, you'll be able to chat with some students there, current students from different schools in Canada, and sort of pick their brain, right? What was school like for you? So check out schoolfinder.com, which we talked about in a previous slide. Here it is, schoolfinder.com. You'll find a chat with ambassadors option there to meet current students. Okay, Ian, what if the reference letter is written in a different language, like French? Interesting question. Don't send a letter in a language that you think the person who it's sent to can't read it. If it is written in French and you're applying to an English school and you have no reason to assume there are French admissions, then get your letter translated. Don't expect that the school will translate it for you. Yeah, so for instance, you're applying to University of British Columbia, say, which is an English language institution. Don't send them a French reference letter. Get it translated before you send it. That would be my advice. Yeah, I hope that helps. Another quick question, how recent must reference letters be? If you have one from 2 years ago, would you be able to use it? Good question. 2 years is sort of getting towards the edge case. I would say 2 years is pretty okay. If we're getting into 4 or 5 years, it might be too far back. If you are no longer in contact with that person and they are somebody gives them a call and says, "Hey, how was applicant X?" and they go, "Who?" That's not good. If you're still in contact with the person, maybe ask them to update it for you. So a couple of years is okay, but if they start forgetting who you are and can't answer questions in a phone call or an email, either get it updated or find somebody else. I hope that helps, even if it's not maybe the answer you're hoping for. Okay, folks, lots of great questions. Yeah, I appreciate it. Keep them coming if you have them. We have a couple of more minutes, I think, or I do anyway, before I must leave. And otherwise, it's been a pleasure. Oh, we got another one. Mohammed, can I use these scholarships for any country, not only Canada? Really depends on the award. In most cases, no. Most awards are going to specify where you must be attending. So the award will be open to students going to a Canadian school, for instance. Or the award might be from a Canadian school, like the U Calgary award that we discussed earlier. They're not going to let you just take that money and go wherever with it. Yeah, so in most cases, it's going to be specified. It'll depend on the award. I can't think of one offhand that would just give you money, but some awards are open to any part of the world, right? So doesn't matter where you're going. Again, depends where you're looking and what you're looking for. In most cases, though, scholarships are going to be pretty restricted. It won't be like a free-for-all. All right, friends. Well, I had a good time today delivering this presentation. I hope you enjoy. Yeah, you're welcome. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. One more quick question from Chris. Interested in a particular uni, how would I get more information from them on scholarships? Really, I mean, you can reach out to them, right? Schoolfinder or Scholarships Canada. Schoolfinder might be the better way to find their info, right? Check out a profile like this Ulster University one, for instance, and you can reach out to them. There is a request info button you'll see on the page and on the program, even in the screenshot, you can see a little request info. That'll give you a chance to reach out directly and folks will email you or call you back. So yeah, if you have questions, again, I encourage you always to reach out to the school or the scholarship admin and ask them, hey, because sometimes just that little bit can put you to the top of the pile. Your name is fresh and it shows you're engaged, right? You're asking questions you want to know. That often looks good. So keep that in mind too. All right, friends, thanks again. Have a great rest of the fair. See ya.